those residents we're unable to house, who are living in encampments, up to 500 of them. We're up to 250 already. We'll get to 500. We're paying them with the help of MasterCard and a little debit card that they get. And then they can use that to pay for food and basic necessities. Can't be used at a liquor store, but it can be used at other kinds of stores. So it's with the help of some technology there. And we pay them specifically for collecting trash in bags and leaving those city-issued bags at designated locations, and helps them keep their areas clean and also clean other parts of our city and get a few bucks in their pocket. So the program's been successful so far as we've been expanding it and increasing its frequency. And we hope to continue to expand it. And then, of course, we're also improving the 311 app. Just this year, we're adding applications on the 311 app, which is free to download, whether you have an iPhone, Samsung, doesn't matter. It's free to download. And you can use that very easily to simply take a photo of that graffiti, the trash, the broken street light, whatever it might be, take a photo of it. It's geotagged. You send it into our city hall with a click of a button, and it gets to us. And then we're able to respond, and we're able to respond very quickly to a very high percentage of those calls. And then, of course, a real focus on restoring our parks, particularly the Guadalupe River Park. We had a lot of discussion on that just this week. So other priorities from last year, and again, some of these dollars are just rolling out now. They aren't all spent. This is money that is currently rolling out, and as city employees are coming back into City Hall, I think you're going to see more impact. San Jose Alfresco is a program that you see described here. This is something that helped more of our small businesses get out in the street to conduct business outdoors, to be safer with COVID. It also happens to be pretty positive development for a lot of small restaurants and cafes who are eager to take advantage of more space and take advantage of 300 days of sunny year. So I want to continue to help folks build out the infrastructure they need. We know that costs money, and so we're waiving a lot of fees and trying to help them get up and running. We're expanding community Wi-Fi for hundreds of thousands of residents living in East San Jose. Our goal is to reach 300,000 by the end of this year with free community Wi-Fi. That is critically important, we know, for so many of our residents who struggle to afford to pay for internet service, particularly our students who have to learn online. And we hope by the end of this year, when we're complete, we'll be serving a population that is equal to that of the city of Pittsburgh or St. Louis. It's a tremendous accomplishment by our city team over a very brief period of time, just a couple of years. And then we're partially restoring library service hours as well. And hopefully you're seeing that change already. As we continue to work on our equitable recovery, as we call it, there's a host of different programs that I initiated at our mayor's office that we've been fundraising for, and city staff are deeply engaged and working on. I'm really grateful for it. Resilience Corps, we used some federal money to launch this. Now we have more than 460 young people, young adults who are working, supporting our city in all kinds of ways, whether they're supporting vaccination stations or they're clearing defensible space in some of the areas of our suburbs that are near wild land where they're susceptible to wildfires. They're helping us to address drought in various ways. They're helping us to distribute food in warehouses with Second Harvest Food Bank, a whole host of great services that these young people are providing. We're paying them more than $20 an hour. I think in some cases 23 an hour, which is great. We're targeting young adults who live overwhelmingly in low-income neighborhoods or neighborhoods that are struggling financially. And so this has been a real boon to them, great opportunity for them to move on to the next step. And we're helping them with other kinds of supports while they're supporting the community. So thrilled to see this program launch and be so successful already. It's becoming a statewide model. We're working in partnership with the governor and increasingly now with the federal government as well. I'll be having a conversation with the labor secretary about this shortly. Okay, we're also expanding San Jose Learns. This is a program targeting 17 of our least affluent neighborhoods, helping to provide after-school programs for many of those young students, K through fourth grade. It's been very successful, and we want to expand that. We've also expanded to summertime, particularly to address learning loss for our youngsters. And then San Jose Aspires, I'm very proud of this program, and is already helping 1,200 high school students at two of our very high-need high schools carve a path to college. It helps them pay with micro scholarships helps them offset the cost of college and post-secondary education while providing signposts, providing a roadmap for them to be able to get to college and beyond, because often many of them don't get enough college counseling and they don't have information about college. So this is helping 1,200 of our young people get to college. We're going to keep expanding this. I've fundraised about $8 million already for it. We're going to keep expanding, we hope. All right. And then finally, the last decision we just made in October of last year on this budget was setting aside about $50 million American Rescue Plan funding for what we know is an enduring rainy day we have with this pandemic. The year ahead, my focus is really going to be primarily in the first three areas here listed: homelessness, crime, and blight. That's where we're going to be focusing a lot of our dollars, how we can get more people off the street, help make our neighborhoods safer and the downtown as well, and address what all of us see as too much trash out there on the street in our communities and our parks. We'll also be focusing a bit on what I call an affordable, sustainable future. There are things that we can do to ensure for future generations we have sustainable supply of water. It's a critical issue right now, obviously, there's drought, and doing what we can to provide more reliable, resilient power, electricity to key functions here in our city with what we call microgrids. So we're going to be working a bit on that as well. So those are some of the things I'd like to focus on. I'd like to hear what you'd like to focus on so we can put a budget message together that's going to reflect the critical needs of our community. I am going to turn this over for a moment to Julian Lake. Julian is a great member of our team who has put together this great effort, what we call balancing act, that helps us capture your priorities and preferences through a budget exercise in the way that it really forces all of us to, with a constrained budget, a limited amount of options, identify what our highest priorities are. And that's really what budgets are all about. Julian, take it away.
Thank you so much, Mayor. And as the mayor said, we would love to hear from you about what your priorities are and with regards to the budget. And one way you can get involved in that budget process is to go and use our online Balancing Act budget tool. This exercise you can access, through your phone, your laptop, tablet, what have you, just by going to the links that I've posted here on sanjose.abalancingAct.com. We have it in English, Spanish, and Vietnamese. And the tool basically lets you get a peek behind the curtain about what the budget looks like from the city's point of view and the deficit looks like, and how you can take steps to correct that deficit. But it will make you think about some of the tough choices that city officials have to make when choosing their priorities. And we'd love to hear your comments on how you would like to see that budget balanced by using this tool. So feel free to use it and share it. It's great during a time when many of us can't attend in-person meetings to talk about the budget. It's a great virtual representation that is COVID safe, and really a comprehensive tool with a lot of information that you'll get in there. So thanks so much, and I'll give it back to you, Mayor.
Thanks, Julian. Thank you for your hard work in putting this together. We think this has been a really effective tool, particularly during this pandemic when people often feel hesitant to come to community meetings for obvious reasons, to really capture your priorities. And we have made it available, as mentioned, in Spanish and Vietnamese. We'll continue to really rely on your help to get the word out as we try to nudge folks as well. All right. So speaking of your input, let's go to your thoughts. I'm going to stop sharing. See here. I know I'm going to get this wrong, Henry. So I'll let Henry figure out how we're going to stop sharing in just a moment, which we'll do in just a second. I will encourage everybody to raise your hand and ask questions. We'll also go to the Q&A that's in the chat, and we'll take questions from that as well. And then I think finally we'll go to Facebook Live. If folks have questions there, we'll read those questions off, and so that way we can all discuss. Let's go first to folks who are here that are live, and then we're going to stop sharing now. Okay. Couldn't find the stop share button, but now we're there. Okay, so we've got some folks who raised their hand. Let's go to those residents who have patiently been waiting. May, welcome. And I just ask if you could sort of constrain your comments to 2 minutes. Be considered for all the folks who want to ask questions. Thanks. Hi, May. If you could unmute your device, we'll be able to hear you, May. Right now, it looks like your microphone is off, so you'll have to push that mute button, mute function. Oh, we just lost her? Okay. All right, May, give it a shot again, and we'll be happy to call on you when you're ready. John Sala, good to hear from you, John. John, you're also muted, though. If you push your mute button, you'll unmute yourself, and then we'll be able to hear you. There you go. We got you, John. Yep.
Okay. Thank you. So this is kind of a repeat question, but it's one that you kind of brought up the points. And it constantly comes up that residents versus jobs. The constant concept that we have more people and less, jobs to pay for the taxes.
Yeah.
Yet we keep passing things, as you mentioned, to increase housing, increase densities, do all of the things that I guess are right. But at the same token, we're just putting ourselves further in the hole, as you kind of just pointed out a minute ago.
Yeah.
And, I'm a little concerned that our direction is, continues to move in that way. So from a priority standpoint, how do we sort of change that direction so that either we stop saying we're getting less money or live with the money we're getting and be in that category? As I mentioned, the answer can't continue to be, let's just charge more taxes to solve some problem, fee or whatever the case may be. And I know that always becomes the answer. And I'll kind of leave it at that. But once again, I know the comparison to other cities that we make, we often miss the part about some of the costs that we have and some of the things that the citizens pay, regardless of we get nothing from the federal government in a way, so forth and so on. So I'll leave it at that, Mayor Sam. And I appreciate that we have a tough scenario compared to others. But again, it sure sounds like it's still going to get tougher, as you said, even beyond this year. So I'll stop.
Yeah, no, it's a fair point, John. Here's the good news. There is a path forward. Look, we're between what they call the Scylla and the Charybdis, right? The devil in the deep blue sea. We've got on one hand, this fiscal challenge in the city that should compel us to try to get more jobs in the city rather than getting a lot more housing. And then we've got this housing crisis that encompasses not just our city, but our region and our state that compels us to build more housing. And how do we address both? There is a path to doing both. And what that means is really towing the line of what we call smart growth, building very high densities in the downtown and along key transit corridors where we have BART stations. We just opened one in Berryessa, of course, and we're going to be building densely there. And hopefully we're going to continue that construction starting this year if we can just get it all together with the FTA. So building that high density housing does two things. It gets obviously more housing supply, but also it builds housing at a density where actually the returns start to turn positive for the general fund and the taxpayers. In other words, because you have so many people living on such a small parcel of land, and you can actually provide fire and police services to them relatively cost effectively because they're in the downtown. They don't have to drive miles and miles to get to someone. It enables us to provide services more cost effectively and to get more revenue for that acre that then helps support services. So that's why I've been such a strong proponent, among other reasons, why I've been a strong proponent for high-rise housing in downtown, because it's the most fiscally sustainable way we can build housing. It's also the most environmentally sustainable way we can build housing. And I know that I think there was just an article today in the Mercury News about fee waivers we have for downtown high rises. I'm not sure it captured all the data, which I encourage people to go look at the city reports to really understand the data. But we're basically waiving $4 million in city fees for this one high rise to try to help it get out of the ground because they're not able to get financing. They can't get any lending. They can't get anybody to invest unless we have a fee waiver. So we waived a little more than I think it was $4.4 million in fees. And what we get automatically, if they just build the darn thing, is $7.5 million in fees, plus an ongoing source of revenue of about $2 million every single year ongoing. for many, many decades to come. And that number increases because of property tax, because the benefit that you get when you convert an empty parking lot into a $300 or $400 million tower, all of a sudden you've got a lot more to tax. And so the revenue is tremendously greater for the general fund and a great benefit for the taxpayer. So it's a no-brainer for anyone if they're asking the question, should we waive fees or reduce some fees on this high rise? Heck yeah, it's going to produce a lot of tax revenue. And that's what we critically need to provide services. And that's the way we can provide a lot more housing. Now, they're not all going to be high rises. Some will be mid rises, 6 or 7 stories. That is still preferable. The problem we had was for decades, we had this pattern of sprawl. And I'm not looking to bulldoze anybody's single family neighborhood to build these high rises or anything like that. We don't have to. We have corridors where we can build densely, where we have transit and services. And that's really the key, what we got to do. In the meantime, we're going to keep hustling to try to bring jobs into the city. We've got a lot of good news on the horizon. I was just talking to 2 CEOs in the last 2 days who are bringing their campuses into our city, which is fantastic. And expansions, for example, NEO, which is an electric car manufacturer, they're expanding their facility here, R&D. As we know, Google is expanding rapidly. Roku just moved their headquarters in, Yahoo and others. So we've got a lot of good news. We're just going to try to keep continue to expand employment while we're adding housing. All right, Gisela, welcome. Great to hear from you.
Hey, Sam, how are you tonight?
Great, Gisela.
Thanks so much for taking the time to go over the budget priorities. And I applaud your focus both on housing, affordable housing, and on homelessness. But I continue to see, much to my dismay, I don't see anything in the way of a long-term commitment to feeding the hungry and the homeless in our community. Now, perhaps that's baked in under homelessness, and it's just we're not getting down into the devil in the details. But this seems to be something that we perennially have to come back on a quarterly basis to ask for continued assistance. And while we're starting to see the health impacts of COVID wane, we're not seeing the economic and the social impacts wane at all. In fact, the numbers continue to go up. So I'd really like to hear a commitment on the part of the city to help ensure that we have sustained funding support so that we can continue to feed the most vulnerable among us.
Thank you, Gisela. And I think for those who don't know, Gisela is the executive director of Loaves and Fish, is a very important nonprofit that's providing critical support for so many struggling families unhoused. Gisela, could I just ask you, I know that we have been in our last vote at the budget where we managed to keep the funding going. We were all anticipating that there was going to be a study that was coming back to the county to talk about our county-wide plan and how we're going to work together. Has that study come back yet?
It hasn't, no.
Okay.
It's in the wrap-up stages, but it should be back very, very shortly.
Okay. Well, I look forward to engaging with you and many other stakeholders as we get that information back and put together a plan collaboratively with the county and other agencies. Thank you. All right, Dan Orloff is up next. Welcome, Dan.
Hey, Sam. Nice. Thank you for the time tonight.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I wanted to speak on the downtown San Jose Foot Patrol.
Yeah.
You know, I've been involved in the downtown community since 1977, and I recall back in those days, we saw beat cops on the streets being helpful. And there's something that only a beat cop can do, if it's okay to refer to them as cops. It gives away my
Sure,
age.
why not?
Police officers, thank you. Is that they get to know the community. They get to know the shopkeepers, the business owners. They have a sense of, you know, something might be out of sorts. And they can also act as ambassadors in a way no one else can. And I think that we are on the verge of a renaissance in downtown San Jose. We've been waiting for it for a long time. And I think we're going to be glad, because I think the renaissance that we're heading towards is better than what we imagined might have been coming years ago. And so finding funds, finding the right people to run it, you know, to get, you know, the foot patrol on the ground, literally, I think can make the difference for the complete experience that you've helped guide as mayor of San Jose. That's all I wanted to say, and appreciate that very much, Sam.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. I appreciate your comments, and thanks for all you've done as a part of that, as that effort to revive our downtown. I just say this, there's no question right now, every downtown in America is struggling during this pandemic because there's almost nobody working downtown. I'm here at City Hall, and it's a pretty lonely scene sometimes. We're going to get people back at work. I know a lot of employers are eager to do that, particularly as we get on the downside of this recent spike. And I think that's going to help tremendously. Really a lot of help from Captain Acosta at San Jose PD, and before that, Captain McFadden, and really trying to refocus efforts because we were struggling for a while there. And I think they've got things under control now where folks are feeling safe again, walking around, and that's an encouraging sign, but we need more help. I think you're right. We're going to continue to need a walking beat, and that's important. All right. Adolfo Gomez, great to hear from you. Adolfo, of course, is the owner of a fabulous restaurant downtown, Mezcal. Welcome, Adolfo.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Mayor and council members, I want to go over with the same thing. As a business owner in downtown for the last 13 years and been working in the same street for about 25 years between my last job and now this job, and being in downtown since 1990, I know how things are being changing, but I think food patrol is something that we need to consider. Then is one of the only things we can make an effect right away. We can take care of the homeless in a time matter. We can clean the graffiti. We can do a lot of things to make the city nicer and safer. But if we schedule a police officer tomorrow, you will see the difference on the street. You'll see the difference of them, walking the downtown areas, communicating with the business owner, making not only the customers, the regular people coming to our businesses, but also our employees. Sometimes it's hard to get employees to come to work for businesses in downtown. One is the safety. Second is parking. So that will help a little bit. Then we see these folks walking around, making connections with the business owners. But I'm talking more about having a team of people be the same people working the downtown area, not different officers every time, because you don't build a rapport. So every day you have someone new. But I think that's what is missing, especially how things are going right now. And what do we want to show the city? And anytime someone comes to your office as a city, they will walk in downtown with you. You take them to different places for lunch. And if they see this, they know we're doing something about it, And families who live, in different parts, north, east, west San Jose, they still come to downtown. They come to downtown to do a few things. And if the downtown is not what they want, the visitors, the guests, their families coming to visit them, they will choose a different city. And in reality, we want to keep growing. We want to choose our own city for everything what we do. That's what I want to say. I don't want to take a lot of time.
Message clearly received, Adolfo. Thank you. And if you want the best mole in town, go check out Mezcal. All right. Michelle Peacock, welcome.
There I am. Hi, Mayor. How are you?
Doing good, Michelle. Thanks.
I am on the call tonight on behalf of the San Jose Public Library Foundation. I am, and we wanted to add our voice to support your initiatives next year, and ask that the city consider restoring the library hours in total. You laid out at a high level your agenda for next year, and I think just about every single one of those initiatives would benefit from having the library restored to where it used to be. The library gives the city of San Jose opportunities for everyone to have lifelong learning. It can help the city meet its equity, inclusion, and diversity goals. And it strengthens our workforce, it strengthens the families, and we just wanted to send a clear message that we think it's vitally important to restore it.
Thanks for weighing in, Michelle, and thank you for what you do with the Public Library Foundation. Great organization, really essential to so many of these efforts, particularly the San Jose Aspires program. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
All right, Ryan Globus. Welcome, Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor Liccardo. Thanks for hosting this. So I live just outside downtown, so near the Alameda area. So I have a couple things to ask for, one sort of short term, one long term. So in the short term is, I know the city's investing a lot in bike lanes and bike trails, and that's fantastic. I'd love to see it. But there's a lot of trash and broken glass in those lanes and trails. And so I'm worried that all that capital money is sort of being wasted if it feels like a roll of the dice if you're going to get a flat tire. So I think in addition to the other trash programs that you have, if we could potentially increase sweeping and cleanup specifically on those streets and in those lanes and trails, that would be awesome. And then the second thing is more long-term. One of the things I've noticed is that the electricity rates have skyrocketed.
Yeah.
And so recently I switched from a gas dryer to electric dryer. And I had multiple people be like, why are you doing that? Like, the gas is so much cheaper, and we're not going to solve our climate crisis if gas is always cheaper than electricity. So I know we can't fix that in 1 year, but I just hope you keep that in mind as we move forward with San Jose Clean Energy and doing anything we can to try to make electricity cheaper.
Yeah, Ryan, great point. I know it's no consolation, but your natural gas prices are also going to go through the roof. Actually, they've increased quite a bit already. Particularly, God help us if there's any Russian military activity in Ukraine. We know that's going to just drive up global costs for natural gas. So I should tell you, there's the grass may look greener, but it won't necessarily be. There's no question there's going to be continued upward increased pressure on prices for electricity, and that is driven overwhelmingly by transmission costs at PG&E. There are huge capital investments being made by PG&E. Some would say far too late. I would be among those, and not nearly enough maintenance on their lines that they're making to address the obvious safety challenges of the past that have led to wildfires, in addition to other structural challenges that PG&E faces because it, bluntly emerged from bankruptcy with more debt than it started. I think it had about $37 billion when it finally came out of bankruptcy. And guess what? Ratepayers are going to be paying for all of that. So there's not going to be an end to the increases in electricity rates. PG&E is seeking now from the PUC at, I think, a 9 or 10% increase in the next rate case. And that just covers their basic rate case. They may be seeking more for capital. So stay tuned. We're going to do everything we can, obviously, to reduce the cost burden of San Jose Clean Energy. The good news is we're almost there in terms of building our reserves. We should be up about $75 million in reserves. As soon as we can get that number all the way up, we'll be able to implement some more cost-cutting measures that will hopefully keep rates lower for our customers. But it's an ongoing challenge given the enormity of the challenge that we're facing in Northern California with PG&E, which handles, of course, all the transmission and distribution. Okay, Steve Cohen, welcome.
Oh, there we go. Sam, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Steve.
Great.
Hey.
Hey, how you doing? So I got a couple of things. One is, if you need money, you spend the money that you have to generate money. And that would be fixing the downtown core. And that is, like everybody else said, safety. But I don't believe just in foot patrol. I met with Chief Landown years ago when we were having issues here, and we brought the bicycles back. They cover a lot more area for the same amount of manpower. They're a lot more efficient. And if there's an issue, obviously a bike's going to move a lot faster than someone on foot. So that's number one. The other issue is I have two properties on the 400 block of South 3rd Street. And we're now supposedly, they're trying to put us into the P-bid. And this block alone, the cost for all our properties is over $26,000 a year.
That's for four properties, Steve?
That's for all the properties on the 400 block of South 3rd Street.
Oh, okay. How many is that? Do you know?
I'm going to say about 12.
Okay.
I have two alone, and that's going to run me $2,800 a year.
Okay.
I don't need safety ambassadors. I don't need banners on my poles that don't take banners. But if they told me that that money was going to go towards safety where my tenants are happier and we get businesses down here, so the city generates money, that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
That's what I got.
Yeah, Steve, your point's well taken and message is heard. For those who didn't understand what Steve was referring to, a PBID is what's called a property-based improvement district. This is actually not explicitly the city driving this. This is the San Jose Downtown Association with property owners downtown. They vote to determine whether or not they want to support a means to tax themselves, essentially, to pay for services that they then operate. And for many of you who see, for example, the groundworks ambassadors who are cleaning up the streets and sidewalks, and they do such a great job in downtown, those are really, those are folks who are hired by the PBID, the Property-Based Improvement District that Downtown Association manages in conjunction with the city. Really, the Downtown Association deserves a credit. So the points are well taken. I understand the dollars need to go to safety. And I will definitely take that back to both the chief and as well our budgetary team. Todd, welcome.
Hi. Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, Todd, we can hear you.
Thank you for having this meeting. I want to also throw my support into the foot and bicycle patrols. And I think they could be particularly helpful in neighborhoods that are adjacent to large homeless encampments that aren't moving anytime soon. And on that note, since it's a budget meeting, it would be helpful if there was a graph that there's, let's say, 800 homeless people and it's going to cost $1,000 each to house them, and the ongoing cost is going to be $500 a year. And also the same thing with affordable housing. There's 5,000 people in San Jose that would be eligible for affordable housing because the cost seems blind, right? And I'm really happy with this Casa de Citas, I think it is, at the county buildings, tiny homes. But they're helping like mothers with kids, which they need help, and I'm all for it and very supportive. But I don't see help going out to the other element of homeless, the kind of crazy ones that have washers and dryers at the Guadalupe Park. There's been no change in the 5 years I've lived here downtown. So it might be just perception and we're moving a lot of homeless, but it's that I'm not seeing the change.
Yeah, Todd, fair point. And I know you're not alone in feeling that way. Let me explain at least what's been happening. Since the pandemic started, the constellation of agencies working together to try to house the homeless, the city, the county, housing authority, and others have housed, I think, a little more than 5,800, perhaps it's 5,900 now, unhoused people. And I say housed, I mean not in shelters, but in permanent housing. So a lot of people have moved off the street. The problem, of course, is during this pandemic, we know that more people have been pushed back out into the street. And so there's an enormous challenge in trying to keep up with the intensity of the need. And that's not just here, it's in every big city in the Western United States. Every mayor from Denver to Vegas to San Diego to Seattle is concerned with the same top priority. In terms of understanding the cost, you referred to the tiny homes at the county and the casitas. That's certainly one solution, though I think we all agree, very, very temporary solution and relatively low cost. What we're trying to do is provide solutions that are a bit more flexible, can be used more permanently, or at least for longer durations. And that's when I referred to the quick build apartment communities. The typical cost build, those are the first three communities we built, all cost about $100,000 per unit. Those are prefabricated modular units for private bedrooms and baths. They're really built out like dorm rooms, essentially. And that can provide much longer term for housing. We know that the smaller casitas and tiny homes and so forth are definitely not, they're just not made to last very long, and they're not really made for extended living. So we think the model that we're embarking on here with these quick build apartments is probably a more feasible one. That being said, there's still a significant amount of operational costs. You still have to provide basic support. And you mentioned some of the issues around mental health, for example, and drug treatment. And that is overwhelmingly, of course, that is entirely responsibility of the county and the state. They administer public health and all things health related and medical in this community, just like as they do in every county in California, the exception being San Francisco because it's a city and county. So we have to try to do what we can to work collaboratively with the county to get county services provided in these communities. We're hopeful that they will be encouraged to do that. In the meantime, the city's doing all it can to simply find nonprofit providers because this is really fundamentally responsibility that fits under public health and behavioral health, which is something the county has expertise in. They get state and federal money for, et cetera. We don't. So we're going to do everything we can to certainly support that. But it requires partnership, and we're going to keep working together to try to address the clear, obvious drug and behavioral health needs of many of the unhoused in partnership with the county. There was a question in the chat, which is if we'd like to submit a budget idea for consideration, can we email ideas to julian.lake@sanjoseca.gov? And the answer is absolutely. That's a great place to send them. Julian would be happy to see your suggestions, and he'll make sure they are socialized with Mackenzie and myself. So please do send your emails to us at that email, which is the very first chat suggestion from an anonymous attendee, obviously a brilliant anonymous attendee, to get Julian's email exactly right. I'm guessing it might be someone on our team. Caleb, welcome. Hi, Caleb. You appear to be muted right now, so you need to push the unmute button. Okay, Caleb, does he have a software problem?
Yeah, we can come back.
Okay. Should I instruct him to download a different version?
No, he's up to date. He's just having trouble finding that.
Okay, Caleb, could you, we're going to come right back to you. Keep trying to unmute yourself. That's the button on the bottom left corner of your Zoom screen. And we'll be happy to call you as soon as you can sort of sort that out on your device. Tina Morrill, good to hear from you, Tina.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello. Can you hear me? Hi.
We can. Hi, Tina.
So thank you, Sam, for hi. Thank you, Mayor Sam, for having this. Just a couple of thoughts. One of them is just as a tax-paying citizen, I really want to see some basic services done well. I am not somebody who wants a whole bunch of projects that are kind of done mediocre. I would like to see just clean streets. I'd like to see some more garbage cans with garbage pickups, the street trees maintained that the city owns, our streets swept, just our parks maintained. So I can't stress that enough. I don't want to see the city doing a whole bunch of projects. I want them to focus on a few projects and do them well. And my other suggestion, and I know, Mayor Sam, you're probably tired of me of hearing me say this, but I think that the city needs to look at its processes. A lot of the processes are antiquated and or broken. So even this, budget exercise, I would assume that it probably has built-in assumptions that, we're going to do, street maintenance the same way we've always been doing it, or, whatever the other components of this budget exercise are. I just really feel like the city could save some money if they would look at the processes and ask.
Could I ask you just to suggest an example, one where you think there's a particular process that you believe can be readily improved?
Sure. I remember doing this once with you, Sam, and it's such a little tiny itty bitty example, but I'm happy to. So I was a library commissioner and I was an arts commissioner.
Right.
And in order to get sworn in, you have to make an appointment with the city clerk. So there's 11 of us. So we all had to make appointments with the city clerk. There were 11 different appointments. We had to go down there, spend time, get sworn in. Why can't the city clerk just come to one of the commission meetings, 10 minutes ahead of time and say, okay, everybody raise your right hand, and they all get sworn in at the same time?
Yeah,
Instead of, and I know it's a silly little example, but it is an example.
Yeah.
So yeah. I know also the city auditor, she has made a few suggestions on Parks and Rec department. So, I just feel like it's worth a look, Mayor Sam.
Okay, thanks, Tina. I know a lot of folks agree with you that they'd like to see us doing the basics much better. I would also. Juan Carlos Araujo. Hi, Juan. Juan Carlos, good to hear from you.
Hello.
Welcome, sir. Hi, we can hear you.
Hey, Honorable Mayor. Hey, Sam, how you doing?
Great,
thank
sir.
you for having this forum. As you know, I'm definitely here as, a resident, arts commissioner for District 3, and producer of San Jose Walls, owner of Empire 7 Studios. And really wanted to be in support of the foot patrol that the Urban Vibrancy so kindly sent out an email asking for support. And I was really glad to actually receive the memo, because it's been a while. I've been luckily and fortunately busy, but also still keeping really busy, still producing artwork along the trail. And since last year, it was great to hear on your budget, on the presentation, about just seeing progress. And I do want to thank you for following up on the Resilience Corps. It's really exciting to see that they got more funding, and to see that there's going to be use to be able to sort of lean on this program to extend some of the ideas that I think some of the residents and business owners are expressing here. Long term, right? The program is somewhat temporary. Can there be an expansion to the Groundworks program that is only, essentially just working the downtown corridor, the mobility and the access to equipment that is just, it's so important for the trail. The trail is a lifeline to the valley. I don't know if many people actually realize that thousands of people cycle through San Jose because they probably don't want to exit through any of those horrific staircases that, unfortunately, the resources that are volunteers and all the entities that are out there doing all that great work, they need more. They need more support, more power, more tools, more presence. And so foot patrol on bicycles and things like that, I think there's unhoused community that feels unsafe. And there's trouble out there that's just doing drugs and doing it in front of children and doing it in front of the public view, because it's lawless down there right now. Yeah. So I think it's all connected, and I just wanted to just express that I know I don't have all the answers here. I just thought it would be great for me to use this time and opportunity to share. So thank you for the time.
And thank you for all you're doing to improve our cultural vibrancy in our city, and all you do to support the arts. Let me just say two things. First, for all those folks who are advocates for more police presence in downtown, through walking patrols, bike patrols, etc. Let me just tell you, I'm sold. I've been supporting this every year, putting in the budget. I don't always have necessarily in past years have had the full cooperation. I shouldn't say anything about the current chief. He's been great, but in past, they haven't always been willing to actually use the dollars to actually get cops out of cars and onto foot patrol. So I'm hopeful this year we'll have chief really committed to doing that. But really, it's important to know you're preaching to the choir with me. It's really important to talk and have your voice be heard at the council. That is with the rest of the council, because we've got 10 council members and only one of them represents the downtown district. And I suspect the council member Paulus is already on board with this. We got to persuade all his colleagues to support this as well. So we'd appreciate your advocacy, that is, with our colleagues from other districts throughout the city. Secondly, just about the Guadalupe, huge challenge, obviously, Guadalupe River Park, the trails. We've seen just the devastation that's happened there through the pandemic with so many people living there, the fires, everything else. We've managed to move about 50 people out into permanent housing. That's good. We've got a lot more to go. On Tuesday, I introduced a proposal to take $2 million out of the mid-year budget to accelerate the rapid rehousing of those residents in Guadalupe River Park that are there now. We are cleaning up and spending a lot of money to clean up that park, and hopefully restore the trail to a usable status by mid-late summer so that everyone can feel comfortable, safe using it. And yes, the police, it's not about, harassing the homeless or moving the unhoused. In fact, the unhoused, I think, as you put it well, Juan Carlos, they are themselves the victims of much of this crime. And we need to protect everybody, including our unhoused residents. Okay. Jill Borders, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Liccardo. First, I just want to thank Jim Shannon. He answered my question in the chat, zippity quick. That was pretty impressive.
I love you, Jim.
Thank you.
He's a lot smarter than me.
I think it was him that did a presentation the other night on something that was just brilliant. Anyway, it was so.
Yeah.
I wanted to mention the jobs, housing, and balance thing. I kind of echo that one caller who said, this mantra about it is kind of, I think, is all driving us crazy. I know it drives you crazy too. But my question is this. Is there a way, it feels so archaic, the way that cities are funded. I'm sure you feel the same way too, but now that we have this kind of move almost to hybrid, can't we look at new economic models, new taxing models? Isn't there, or is there any discussion on how we can have an employer in Palo Alto who's got, say, 30 employers that live in San Jose and they work from home? Thank goodness they're buying their lunch there and you're getting their tax dollars on lunch if they go out now, if they're working from home. But it seems to me at this point in time, we actually have now a reasonable conversation to where they're not actually physically located there anymore. They're here. So even if there was some sort of split there, hey,
Yep.
If you're working at XYZ in Palo Alto, Cupertino, wherever, that's fine.
Right.
You're sitting in the seat in San Jose. We want a piece of it. So that's one question I have. Can we have new economic models? What's on the table? And the second question is flipped to that. I know tons of people who live in Gilroy and Hollister, and they work in San Jose.
Yep.
And there's that piece of it too, where they're the bedroom community for us. So
Yep.
how do we kind of stop talking that way and have a large conversation?
Yeah, how do we get beyond all this?
Yeah. Okay. So I'll let you
Yeah.
respond. Thank you.
Yeah, no, a really important question. And Jill, you're absolutely right, particularly in the pandemic, that just puts an exclamation point on how ludicrous the current system of municipal finance is in the state of California. And the really challenging thing is, you would have thought this would have been obvious enough to the legislature when we've been enduring a housing crisis for the last decade that is so intense, that is driven in part by the fact that there are lots of cities, including right here in Santa Clara County, that are happy to build out these multi-million square foot campuses for large tech employers, but don't want to allow housing, particularly dense housing, anywhere in their city limits. We just had recently, when it hit the news, that Woodside decided they want to create a lion preserve out of their city just so they could avoid actually housing people, God forbid. So, so you're right, it's ludicrous. It is a very big mountain to move in the state legislature. And I guess I'll leave it there. I am happy to advocate for it. And I think you've probably, if anything, your comments have given me renewed fire to go gripe again next time I go talk to folks, my friends in the state legislature, because I'll continue to do that. It is a very big mountain to move because, of course, where there are winners, there are also losers. And, the Palo Altos and Cupertinos of the world, I'm sure would be fighting hard against any changes for things like that. So we got to figure out a way for a better system of municipal finance, because this clearly is not working for big cities, and it's not working for a housing crisis, and it's not working for any of us. So thank you, and amen. And I'll be happy to push with you. All right, Steve Borkenhagen, who happens to be a neighbor of mine. I'm not sure if he likes to admit it, but he is a neighbor of mine and lives around the corner. Hi, Steve.
Hi, Sam. Thank you very much for tonight's program. I've got 2 points, both about police foot patrols. The first one is about funding. I'm really glad to hear that you are so supportive of it. I am, along with most of the people I know downtown, and I would encourage you and the council to create more funding for police, particularly for foot patrols. So that's number one, is more funding. But the second is a question of prioritization. And I would ask you and the council to direct the chief to allocate his existing budget differently. So this doesn't have to do with more funding. It's simply prioritizing downtown foot patrol over some of the other functions that the police currently do. And I know the chief has great leeway in how he can use the money that's allocated to the police department. So I want to thank you again for prioritizing this, and anything you can do to bring foot patrol and bike patrol to downtown is very much appreciated. Thank you, Sam.
Yeah, fair point, Steve. Steve, again, great point. I do encourage folks to let other council members know, particularly when we have the full council hearings. That'd be a great time to weigh in if you're concerned about downtown patrol. I will say this about sort of the issue. It's more complex than you might think, because the police currently, the department, the way that the district lines are drawn, can only use overtime to fill these foot patrol positions. That's the way the structure seems to be built. I am going to be digging a little deeper on this in the next few weeks to see if we can undermine all that and reconfigure it so we can actually get assigned cops and regular beats to actually do the foot patrol. But I've been told repeatedly that is a no-no. We're going to try to find a path forward. Anyway, more to come on that. All right, Carmen, welcome.
Hi, Sam.
Hi.
So I'm a member of the Black Leadership Kitchen Cabinet and also the Rail Coalition. And one thing in your focus for the next year that you have in your budget that I feel isn't in your budget is the equity. I didn't see you reference equity in there. So that would be something I'd like to really understand how you're going to reflect that in your budget for next year. Secondly,
thanks, Carmen. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Sorry. Secondly, the county is allotting, they're putting aside 75.5 million for housing. So how will that impact the city with them doing this? I'd like to know that. And then the last thing.
I'm sorry, did you say 75.5 million?
Yeah, I think that's what it said.
Okay.
With big headline.
Mayor, I think that was the allocation from Measure A. I think it was their.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, that was the measure that we all passed. Yeah.
So I'm just curious now how it impacts the city.
Yeah, great.
The other thing is I'm going to take you up on your offer to chat with us, with our folks about the budget and what our needs are. I'd like to bring you in front of our BLKC team.
Sure.
And you chat with us, and there'll be other organizations too that would be part of that would be included. So I'll reach out to your staff.
That'd be great.
Can't get that set up.
Thank you, Carmen. Carmen, just to go back first on equity, the 4 priorities that I outlined in my budget message last year, one of those was on equitable recovery. And so those were all the elements that we talked about that included what we were trying to do to help. Well, I won't go through all of them all over again because people have heard this already, but expansion of San Jose Aspires program to serve more high school students, the San Jose Learns program to help address learning loss in overwhelmingly low-income communities, helping to launch the Resilience Corps for 160 young adults who are participating in that, getting paid living wage, support our community overwhelmingly from struggling communities in our city, particularly in East San Jose. So programs like that are what were part of that equitable recovery pillar. That was a central pillar of the budget, one of the 4. In addition to the separate pillars, which are also had equitable issues relating to or equitable elements, for example, around homelessness, obviously a critical issue of equity. With regard to the $75.5 million for housing for Measure E, so what happened was the voters passed in 2016 Measure A, which authorizes, I think, $950 million to be spent in affordable housing, and the issuance of bonds for affordable housing. The county has been building the housing. It's a great thing. We love the measure. I support it. Happy to do so. The money is running out. It's going to probably run out. I'm guessing the last allocation will be in the next 2 years, I'm assuming, based on the current path. What we did in the city of San Jose in 2020 was we passed Measure E, which is in perpetuity. It's a measure that taxes very high-end land transactions, that is land that is worth $2 million or more, and uses that funding to pay for homelessness and affordable housing programs. This year, $90 million will be used for Measure E. That's in addition to what we're also spending from HAP funding that I advocated to get from the governor with the Big City Mayors Coalition, in addition to what we're spending from state and federal sources like emergency ESG grants and CDBG and other sources. So just that Measure E source alone will be $90 million in addition to all the other sources. So we'll be spending lots of money on affordable housing and homeless housing and doing all we can, though obviously it won't be nearly enough. The need is far too great. Eric Glatter, welcome, Eric.
Hi, Mayor. How are you? Thank you for holding this. I thought I lowered my hand because I too am speaking about Foot Patrol, and I don't want to keep bombarding you with stuff. But I'm
okay.
I'm the executive director of Urban Vibrancy Institute, and one of our key focuses is really around safety. And I've been in the for the better part of a year now on Fountain Alley, seeing a lot of really strange stuff. And part of my job is talking to people on a regular basis, residents, business owners, people who are from surrounding towns. And the overwhelming response when I ask people what they want to see in San Jose is they want better safety. We have pretty deep relationships with the police department. We have hosted a series of meet and greets at our office with local business leaders, just to kind of reassimilate. The police have taken a pretty big hit over the last couple of years with a series of events that have just created a little bit of confusion, chaos, whatever, in the way people think about police officers. And what has been incredible with these gatherings that we have is in very short periods of time, you can already see the kind of that beat cop mentality thing is that you get trust, you get establishment, but more importantly, you get community, and you build on San Jose, what San Jose already is, these strong bones, and you have information that is disseminated back and forth as relationships are built. And that information then in turn allows the police officers to more effectively walk their beats, ride their bike, get on a horse, even drive or whatever, but they know where the crime is being committed. And that is a very effective thing. And one of the things I think is truly, and in terms of council, I hear you loud and clear. We're trying to get in front of council at the ARPA meeting, and we'll present in front of them at any point. I really appreciate your
great.
support.
That'd be great, Eric.
But the one thing I think is really missing is that the economic driver that can come from this, right? When people feel that the city's safer, they're out on the streets. When they're out on the streets, they visit stores. When they visit stores, they spend money. When they spend money, more stores open up. When more stores open up, conventions all of a sudden are held here again, and people are feeling safe and a lot of diversity of things to do. Hotels fill up again. Those hotels spend money in the city. And it's a really kind of a cool economic driver that can be created simply by this consistency.
Eric, I'm sorry to cut you off, but I agree wholeheartedly with your sentiment. I'm trying to see if we can keep the comments limited to 2 minutes. But your points are very, very well taken. So thank you very much, sir. I appreciate your points. And I hope you will make them at the full council. Don, welcome.
Yes, did that work?
It did.
All right. Good evening. I'm an old retired guy in South San Jose near Commercial Battle Park, and lived there for 45 years. And I see you have about $3 billion in the general fund and 0.8 that's public safety. Okay. And to me, the whole function of the city is public safety. And I'm afraid to go out at night. My wife is afraid to go out at night. We don't we stay in at night because there's everything around us. People are breaking into cars. They're stealing cars. They take the packages off our porch. There are no police cars around. We never see a police car. I have security cameras. Never see a police car on the security cameras. Okay. So, but I do see people picking up porch packages. I do see them casing cars down the street, but nobody from the city really seems to care. And I agree with the last guy. If it was safer to go out, we would be out there spending money, but we don't. So that's my real whole.
Yeah. Don, let me suggest, look, your sentiment is felt, I know, by many in our city, but let me at least clarify the facts for you so you clearly understand what we are spending and what we're not of our 1.4 and our $1.5 billion general fund. 60% of that is spent on public safety. And actually, it's probably a little higher if you include the fact that some of the general administrative costs that come in, for example, in the city attorney's office and so forth, are spent actually on cases and issues relating to police and fire. So about 6% of our general fund, and I'm sure Jim Shannon can tell us the exact number. And I think if we were to peer into all the different general administration, we'd probably find it's quite a bit more. Of that, a majority of that is for police, right? Fire is a significant share, but police is most of it. So it is not the case that we spend whatever you describe 0.8% on public safety. That is the lion's share of the service. That being said, we still have the most thinly staffed police department of any major city in the country, and that is due to the nature of our fiscal issues, which I've described at length. I do want to reassure folks that as much as there's no question that every time you turn on the nightly news, you hear something about crime, you go into next door or on social media, you hear about crime. We know there's no question there's a lot of concern about crime. Last year, San Jose had the lowest homicide rate of any major city in the United States. Let me say that again. At a time when we saw skyrocketing violence throughout the country, San Jose had the lowest homicide rate of any major city in the country. We had 30 homicides, which was lower than the prior year, substantially lower. This year so far, it's now March 10th, we've had one homicide in the city of San Jose. That's one homicide too many. Just as 30 homicides is 30 homicides too many. But to be really clear, there is not a mayor in the country who wouldn't beg to have that situation in their city. So yes, we should be concerned about crime. Yes, we need to do more about crime. Yes, those concerns are real. And yes, we need more police officers. We'd love to have them. But it's not the case that San Jose is somehow or another a crime-ridden city out of control. That's just not the data. That's not the reality. And property crime has actually dropped the last 2 years. And we're going to do more to address what I'm concerned about in particular is the rise in violent crime. I'm seeing both sexual assault and assault and robberies, where I think we really need to focus a lot of energy. And I do agree with the notion that we need certainly more beat patrols. But I don't want folks walking away somehow or thinking that it's not safe to go out in their city. I can assure you this continues to remain a relatively very safe city compared to other big cities throughout the country. All right, let's go on to Jason Sioux. Welcome, Jason.
Good evening, Mayor, and everyone here tonight. Thank you for the meeting tonight and great work by staff. And also thank you, Juan Carlos and Tina Morel, for your comments for our parks. Again, this is Jason Sioux. I'm with the Guadalupe River Park Conservancy. I just wanted to highlight some items mentioned. I'm thrilled about the groundbreaking of Lot E transitional housing project, which will help the river park and the community greatly. The resilience score has been fantastic. The Conservancy hosts 6 of these great teammates, and it's been great to see, to have their work at the river park. And honestly, the energy that they bring to the office, very lively, really love it. We learn a lot from each other. I highlight these because I believe these approaches are a strong strategy to not put environment, homeless, and economic development concerns against each other. There are still needs to recover baseline services, park maintenance, urban greening, trail safety, community health, to pre-recession levels. And that is the point I do want to make with this comments, and I hope is a priority in the budget. I just also want to encourage the direction of embracing these cross-sector and multi-benefit solutions, and hope this continues through the next cycle. So thank you for the time and your consideration.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you for your leadership of the Guadalupe River Park Conservancy. All right, Richard Goss, welcome, Richard.
Okay, can you hear me now? I just unmuted.
We can hear you.
Okay, thanks. I'm on the board of directors at the 88 in downtown San Jose on San Fernando. Right. So, Mayor, you know, it's like you go out during the day. We're spending over $21,000 a month on 24/7 security. And we've had homeless people get on the elevator, start fires, urinate on the building, graffiti, of course. I'm not talking about your classic homeless people. I'm talking about like drug addicts and people who are kind of mentally off balance, right? I've seen, until downtown's safe, nobody wants to come downtown and shop and spend money and put their credit card in the parking meters and stuff like that. But more closer to the 88, it's like we've got retail space, and the board members that represent the retail space say it's completely, they're completely stymied trying to lease out their space. So, I got on tonight because, and I realize you've heard enough about foot patrols and stuff, but we need some immediate action, because it really truly is weird when you walk outside and a homeless person starts screaming at you, and because they're off balance and stuff, and it scares people. It scares the people at the 88. Yeah. I don't want to belabor this. You wanted to keep it to 2 minutes, so I'll cut it short. But we need immediate action. It's like somehow, some way, the police or some private security that's funded by downtown or something needs to start at least patrolling even during the day. If we could cut an 8-hour shift out of our 24/7 security, that would save us a lot of money.
Thank you, Richard. Points are well taken. And I do encourage you, Richard, please, to advocate with the full council as well. I understand the importance of acting before that, and I can assure you we are continuing to push. Nathan, welcome.
Good evening, Mayor Licardo. Thank you for having us tonight. Nathan Olsch here from the San Jose Downtown Association, Director of Policy and Operations. Respect the comment that was made prior, because yes, that is something we're working on in downtown. We have our groundworks team, as well as we had a presentation this morning talking actually about our PVID renewal services, and one of the items is a social impact team. We're trying to be proactive and reactive simultaneously to much of the points made today. We have our second employment unit as well, and so we won't go down the foot patrol route. Thank you very much for your advocacy, everybody, and quite frankly to the mayor as well. So complementing that, though, I do want to mention a letter that we submitted tonight is to complement public safety is going to be the need to keep businesses online. And that's something that's been on our minds quite heavily, both from an employment, but also visitor standpoint, customer base. And we think some aid, fiscal aid in particular, could go a long way. And in particular, Alfresco, godsend for many of our businesses, but not accessible by all by virtue of natural barriers. And it's kept some afloat, barely. And thus they've had to make some accommodations. And this all obviously because of COVID. So we've had businesses vacating downtown. We're trying to constantly recruit businesses internally here. And since then, we've heard our members, they've either reduced hours, they've limited their days of operation for lack of customers caused by the health crisis here. So it'd be great if the city could allocate a small business grant program to help reestablish some of the pre-COVID hours, or any help would be warranted here. Similar to that of the Abierto model, that was quite successful, I think, in terms of quick turnaround of sizable grants with limited reporting requirements. And so we're hoping the ask here tonight is if we could get $1 million or so to really help push out into our community downtown, specifically for our businesses and so forth, that would be greatly appreciated. So thank you.
Nathan, I appreciate your advocacy and obviously the important work you do with the Downtown Association and on those safety issues, as well as the fact that I know that you guys are working on an outreach team as well, which is really critically important with all the mental health issues we're seeing with the in-house. Let me say one thing though about the support for small businesses and the environment in downtown generally, which is there's going to be no substitute for actually having human beings who are back working in all those office buildings. And there's nothing the city's going to do that's going to magically change that environment until we have people back at work again. In a pandemic, it just means downtowns are emptied out. And that's true here and it's true elsewhere as well. But it's particularly here in San Jose because we don't have a very large residential neighborhood within the core, a very small number of residents. And so it makes a huge, huge difference that we just don't have anybody in the daytime who's working here. So I am a bit nervous about the idea of spending a lot of public money to sustain businesses that really need customers more than they need a public subsidy, because I think we've seen public subsidies come and go in downtown and throughout the city, and they're generally not a great substitute for basic economics of actually having demand. And we simply, so certainly we're going to do everything we can to the extent there's state or federal money to get that money out the door as quickly as possible, as we did during the pandemic, to hundreds of small businesses. But there's simply not a big source for that funding in the city, within the city, when at the same time we critically needed, for example, to fund foot patrol in the downtown and basic city services. I think you heard from Tina Morrill, a resident who said, look, why don't you guys just focus on doing the basic things right? Do what cities are supposed to do and focus the dollars there. If we're giving out grants, we're not doing the basic things. And that's really kind of the point here. We have a limited budget, and giving out grants when we know that the real problem is that we don't have human beings working in office buildings is not going to be a solution that's going to be sustainable for us. So I'm certainly willing to lean in and work with the Downtown Association on solutions, whether it may be, for example, reducing parking costs for them, for small businesses, for example, throughout the downtown, helping waive fees on tenant improvements, things like that. But a large grant program is not likely. And I just want to be really honest about that, because that's just the reality of our budget. Unless there's another federal state program that comes along and provides us with that source of funding, which we all would love to see happen, but that's going to be a bit above my pay grade. Charles Howard, welcome, Charles. Hey, Charles.
I'm sorry, you called on me. I wasn't ready, so skip.
Oh, no problem.
Well, all right, then I will be quiet and watch you switch to somebody else.
Okay, all right. Raise your hand whenever you feel ready. Caleb, I think we had a challenge before. I think it was just about unmuting. There you go.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we got you now.
Hello. Thank you, Mayor and staff, for the presentation. I certainly learned a lot. I'm speaking on behalf of Bayview Development Group. I'm also a resident of downtown. So not to beat a dead horse, but simply just want to highlight your priorities for this year of homelessness, reducing crime and blight, specifically in the downtown. I think that foot patrol would be a great step in the right direction. And yeah, I'll keep it short and sweet. I think that's the high level of where that, along with your point of getting more people downtown, feels like the necessary next step. So thank you for your time.
Points well taken. Thank you, Keb. All right, Christine Kraft. Welcome, Christine.
Hello, thanks for having me. I am the volunteer president of the San Jose Women's Club, and I just wrote in a little question. I wanted to be really clear. How can the San Jose Women's Club support you, Mayor Liccardo? We are 500 members strong and are more diverse across ages, stages, and races than ever. We also own a landmark property at 75 South 11th, which is vandalized regularly, and our members are unable to walk from our building to East Santa Clara to support local businesses due to regular encamping and despair at the corner of 11th and East Santa Clara, which is actually the entrance to our downtown from 280. So who at City Hall wants to partner with us? We love our city and our neighborhood, and we really want to walk. Please get in touch with me. And I left my email in the Q&A.
Thank you, Christine. And Christine, given the fact that I know the Women's Club well, actually my My parents had their wedding reception there about 60 years ago. So it's near and dear to my heart. I do want to suggest you've got a very powerful potential advocacy organization with 500 women in one club. Please do reach out to us. We'd love to have you communicating with the rest of the council about the importance.
Well, I was so
Tom.
impressed. I was impressed with one of your summer interns that ran how to share community resources with summer camps. I'll look up his number, but I want you guys to reach out to us because I have a hard time wrangling these 500 cats myself. And we do not want us marching without you leading for some directive result. And we are ready. I'm ready. I have 5 more months left for my term. I want to hear from your office. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Christine. I'm happy to have you marching, whether I'm leading or not. I think it's a good thing. Usually good things happen when that many women are marching. So we'll be happy to reach out to you and work with you and your team. All right. I think we've now, we're just about at the end. We've got about 15 minutes left. I want to just check quickly. We had a lot of good questions, a lot of good comments. And I want to check the Facebook feed just to see if there were any comments there. Henry, did you?
I'm on Facebook. But
Okay. Okay. And there's one person just raised his or her hand. M. Welcome, M.
Hi, thank you. 3 things. As far as police and crime go, I'm over by El Paseo, and the crime has soared. It's become much more violent, and the criminals know they can do whatever they want. And I don't call the police for everything because I know their services are limited. Only when something is really critical, and they're fabulous. But unfortunately, I've heard repeatedly that they're only focused on priority crimes because the DA is not prosecuting. So regardless of how many police we put on the streets, we need the DAs to get serious and either prosecute a lot of crimes they aren't, or let the public know, because I personally feel like I'm on my own, so do my neighbors, and we're preparing to just have to do whatever it takes to protect our families. And I feel really burned by the public for that. Another thing is affordable housing. I want to stress to everybody in the process the importance of focusing on rental properties. The beauty of rental versus home ownership in the affordable arena is when somebody is on their feet. I mean, it's great for helping to stabilize families so their children can earn degrees, diplomas from high school, degrees in colleges. But once they're able to support themselves, they really need to fly and make room for the next person that can go in there. And at the same time, it preserves our resources because I don't know how we're going to afford everything that's on the table as it is, as regular citizens of the community. So that's the matter. And the third thing is water conservation. If there are any extra monies or grants, I would like the city to reach out to homeowners. We've had all this rent assistance to the public, but the homeowners really haven't had much offered to them. And anybody who has plumbing leaks they can't afford to repair, I would like them to receive assistance in getting that to preserve our water.
Yeah, thank you. Let me just touch briefly on the affordable housing in San Jose. I can tell you overwhelming, more than 95%, probably closer to 99%, affordable housing is getting built with any city support or subsidy. The city is rental. It's not ownership. And it's because it's impossible to be able to bridge the huge gap right now in the cost of buying housing. So we are overwhelmingly in the rental market. So you're absolutely right about that. With regard to the DA not prosecuting, let me be really clear. I think there's a lot of frustrated DAs too. The problem is actually quite a bit larger than that. And it's something that I'm going to be talking quite a bit about in the next couple of weeks ahead. Our jail is more than half empty. And it's more than half empty, despite the fact that we have DAs who are willing to prosecute, and we have cops who are more than willing to bring folks who are committing crime, who need to be taken off the street because they're committing violent crime and predatory crime in some cases, into jail. But they're not being held. And sometimes even after they're being held, they're being released with near zero or little bail. And they're not being held for a variety of reasons, one of which has to do with the pandemic. It's true that there is an issue with the pandemic and safety at the jail in terms of keeping the jail population safe, because they've had a couple of spikes of pandemic infection there. And for whatever reasons with the jail design, sheriff's office is unable to keep people sufficiently segregated to prevent contagion. Nonetheless, independent of that, there seems to be a strong preference and priority in various policies, particularly in the courthouse and frankly statewide, around zero bail policies in areas where they seem completely inappropriate. Over the last year, we tracked 3 separate homicide suspects who had been released, one as well as a child molest defendant who had been arrested and released on zero bail. It was atrocious in my view. I spoke out publicly about this several months ago. I'll be speaking out more about it. I'm very concerned about it. I've expressed my views very strongly to several of the judges and leadership. There have been some changes, I think, in the organization of what they call arraignments in the arraignment calendar, and I think that will be a benefit and positive. And we're going to continue to try to work with the county and pretrial services, the DA and the judges to get to a more, what I believe, a more rational approach, because there is essentially a rotating wheel here of cops who are frustrated or arresting folks who should be off the street because they're committing the kinds of crime they should be off the street for. They're getting released within hours, sometimes while they're still high on methamphetamine back on the street. And that's what needs to stop. I would like to see certainly much more attention paid, particularly to methamphetamine addiction, and getting facilities where we can have people held, or alternatively, in facilities where they can be housed with methamphetamine treatment provided to them. We've got to find some alternatives. And yes, we got to keep more people in jail rather than simply releasing them. And you'll hear more about this from me in the weeks ahead. So I share your very deep frustration. Pamela Campos, welcome.
Hello, good evening, and thank you so much, Mayor Liccardo, for hosting this evening's event and allowing us to speak on the city budget. My voice today is representing the Santa Clara County chapter of Parent Voices, and we advocate for affordable childcare in the state of California. And so my comment is on specifically what is being done to help families in San Jose who struggle to find and afford high quality, safe childcare. I hear a lot of the issues tonight around crime, poverty, people with mental health challenges, and the unhoused population. And if we had intervention at a very early age in the 0 to 5, first years of life, every dollar that we invest in those first 5 years is a $16 rate of return, because we are helping keep people educated, employed, and out of jail and substance abuse. So I am hoping that the city of San Jose can look into universal, affordable infant and toddler care and supporting families. I'm not sure if you're aware that San Jose has one of the largest childcare deserts in the Bay Area region and in the state. So that means that only 1 out of every 3 children who should have access to a publicly funded childcare seat does not have access because that physical space doesn't exist. So solutions like co-locating childcare with affordable housing projects and just in other development projects with the BART and Caltrain projects that are underway. I'm just hoping that the city can really think about the children who are going to be the future of our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Pamela. I agree and appreciate everything you just said. There's no question we have a huge childcare desert, and it's true in all of our high-cost communities here in the Bay Area, but particularly acute here in San Jose because we have a lot of high-need communities as well. First, in October, I proposed expenditure, I believe the number is $1 million on focusing on how we could help retrofit some of these vacant spaces that we have so much of because of the challenges that retail has faced between the pandemic and Amazon and everything else that's afflicting brick and mortar retail these days. We do have a fair amount of space. Not all of it's appropriate for childcare. Of course, you need access to outdoor spaces and you have to meet state codes, but we want to help many of those small childcare providers that are often providing care in their own homes. The moms who are, or maybe grandmas who are maybe creating a few spaces. We want to give them an opportunity to start businesses and really expand their care in a formal setting. And so that is part of a package of items that move forward. Council approved and along with several $1 million more focused on early learning and childcare generally, and as well as after school learning and tutoring. So there's a whole package of expenditures, about $10.5 million. All that's moved through. Our head of libraries and education, Jill Bourne, our director, is putting together with the rest of her team proposals for how we can spend that money intelligently in a way that will actually get to where the need is. It's critical. Obviously, there's a lot of need across the board, addressing learning loss, addressing need for summer learning and after school, as well as obviously childcare needs. Secondly, with regard to co-locating in affordable housing developments, I couldn't agree more. I've been fighting a bit of a losing battle in retaining commercial space in affordable housing projects and other housing projects. If we have commercial space there, that means we can put childcare in that ground floor commercial space. Unfortunately, I feel like the council's been moving. Well, actually, I know it's votes we've been making to essentially avoid those commercial space requirements mean it will be much, much more difficult to be able to co-locate. And I would very much appreciate your advocacy, Pamela, with the council and with the city to try to push to keep commercial space. In the defense of affordable housing builders, the challenge they have is that the financing they get often from the state and so forth can't be used to finance the build out of that commercial space. And so it makes it harder for them to build affordable housing. So obviously it's a great challenge. I would like to find a greater balance so we can actually get more space for childcare. And finally, I'd note that our library team does a great job with early learning programs. There aren't nearly enough of them. We'd love to be able to expand those, but those are available at several sites throughout our city, and libraries, obviously through the pandemic, greatly constrained our ability to offer those services in person. I think we're going to see a lot more of that in the months ahead as we're emerging from this phase of the pandemic. All right, we're now at 7:57. A lot of folks patiently put in questions through the chat. I'm just going to deal with one because I think that's all we're going to have time with, unfortunately. Really appreciate all the good questions and the active commentary. I'm going to go to Chris Russell. He says, in regards to blight and trash, some of the worst areas are state and Caltrain railroad owned properties. How can San Jose clean these up without waiting for these other agencies, or how can San Jose push these agencies to maintain their properties in a timely manner? Great question. First on Caltrans, raised the issue very strongly and vocally last week at a Valley Transportation Authority hearing. We had the Caltrans director from District 4 come and talk to us. I pointed out and demonstrated and with numbers after number after number and data that they are not allocating sufficient resources to Santa Clara County or our city in San Jose. Whether we look at those numbers per capita or per mile, we're still getting short shrift. I'm going to be meeting again with the Caltrans director in the next few days to really pummel home that point. And I think she, understands and appreciates the importance of it, because we have a lot of folks who are frustrated when they look at the condition of their freeways. And of course, Caltrans has a responsibility, the exclusive responsibility. We can't go out there and clean it for them. We're trying to do everything we can to provide them candidates to fill the vacancies, the many vacancies they have in the maintenance crews. For example, we've been training and helping with the help of Goodwill. Goodwill's been a great partner in this downtown streets team to help unhoused residents get some of those jobs. So they start by cleaning up our city streets, and then we get them jobs with Caltrans. We're hopefully we're going to be able to do more of that, but we've got a lot more to do. And then with the railroads, we're able to conclude an agreement recently with UP that will enable us to deploy some city crews to actually clean that up. And they're spending money as well. They're now on a cycle where they're out there cleaning up their railroads and their tracks 10 times a year. And we're going to keep working with them to ensure that they're being vigilant and using the same graffiti cleaning service that we are. So hopefully you're going to start to see an improvement along our railroad tracks in the months ahead as this agreement's taken shape and the commitment of UP. Obviously, we're going to hold them to that commitment. We're glad they made it, and we'll continue to push them on it. So we are now at time. I want to ensure that folks know that they can forward any unanswered questions to julian.lake@sanjoseca.gov. Again, julian.lake@sanjoseca.gov, or send them to me at sam.licardo@sanjoseca.gov. We'd love to hear those questions. And I appreciate many have been submitted in the chat. We're going to try to capture those and see if we can respond perhaps through Facebook. We'll try to do that and hopefully get answers out to everybody. Appreciate it. There have been a lot of good questions and comments. Really appreciate your deep engagement in this issue. This is just the beginning. We got a lot more work to do, and we hope you'll continue to be engaged with us as we continue to make all